coming to tonight's session on user-centered versus client-centered project management, the evolution of project manager, mixing business goals with experience design. Let me give you an introduction to our very distinguished eminent speaker, Mr. Antonio de Pasquale. Antonio is currently Design Director, Customer Experience Expert at Frog, specializing in digital user experience design. He is a well-known expert in the field of design and innovation, leading product experience and service design, helping companies and institutions to innovate and launch new products and services. He has worked on numerous digital projects ranging from the field of web TV, e-commerce, healthcare, financial services, telco, insurance, corporate website across different media. In the last 15 years plus of his professional experience, he is currently a lecturer and professor at SUPSI, and he is involved in several teaching activities at IED and Politecnico di Milano. A very warm welcome to you, Antonio. We are absolutely delighted to have you here tonight. Handing the session over to you now.
Thanks a lot, Shama.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. Okay, I will start very quickly. First of all, good evening, and thanks for joining this event tonight. It's a pleasure for me to be here and actually to discuss one of the topics that is really relevant for me and that has signed my design career. Always trying to understand how to increase customer satisfaction while balancing the various business requirements. So in general, I've been always finding this research in challenging the UX quality an opportunity. And in many cases, in many companies I've been working, I've seen in general an opportunity in shaping the future of the digital product more than a challenge on, let's say, maintaining the quality of the business requirements. Just a quick introduction myself. I mean, I have been always an interaction designer before becoming a design manager and actually leading several products from concept design to launch. In many years, jumping on many different industries, I've seen different paths, different product that at the first glance, they feel with no commonalities between each other. Actually, there was one thing that was always in common, and this was actually the mental bias that we have actually as designer and sometimes also as a product manager in describing each other. And what I really like is that jumping on designer point of view, we always feel that product owner, product managers are somehow a rigid limitation on the way we do design. And actually, this is the way sometimes we see them. So sort of general or trying to give us orders and trying to keep and respect the path of a specific program or the speed. And on the opposite side, I had the same feeling that somehow the perception of designers from the product owner perspective is actually that we are just funny kids playing with colors and trying to paint in the room, but without knowing exactly where we want to go. And we really need a guidance on how to structure the project and the way of working. But in reality, the best collaboration I've seen and the best way of proceeding in designing a product is really finding a right balance, really finding how we can contribute together to the team with different tools. Maybe someone's bringing the light, some other really playing with sense, but really maintaining that spirit of being a kid in enjoying the experience of shaping and designing something together as a unique team. And this is the spirit, the mantra that I've been always trying to push in the project where I've been involved, working together with other designers and product owners. So today we will try to introduce a little bit some topics that I'm sure that many of you have seen it already in their working experience, and some of them that are my reflection, my thinking on how we can really establish a more long-term relationship and agreement for a better working together. And first of all, I would like you to start thinking at users first. Of course, the users is the first point of reference for ourselves, for designers, but also for product owners, to understand how to shape and to really translate a nice experience for them. So starting with the user in mind, I would like to mention one of the interesting work done by another player, another famous player actually, like Netflix. Let's think how they are approaching user analysis in really translating the UX patterns and navigation in their product. Of course, one of the missions of Netflix is to really to shape a successful design that is able to adapt to every person globally. They are present in all markets and really creating a consistent product without any limitation on the user interface. And one of the questions that it was fun that one large company like them was asking to themselves was actually who we are designing for. And this question sometimes is one of the main issues that we have on many programs, not understanding who are our clients and the user. And in particular, what I also liked that to answer to this big question, to understand who is the target, Netflix try to find a more automatic reply to this question, mixing design input with also A/B testing. I really like this quote from the research lead at Netflix, CD Thunder, that is putting together one of the major challenges that I see today in modern digital product. The combination of behavioral data that is great for starting understanding the key level functionality is not really enough to start having the right segmentation and to arrive to that high level of personalization that we are looking forward in modern digital product. So it's very difficult to understand what we really need and how to do better in terms of personalizing content for the users. And in particular, one of the main challenges is in many cases understand the real use cases, identify which one are the most relevant for the most important target that we have in our product, in our company. And we have the opportunity, especially for a live product, but also for venture one that are starting from scratch, to really investigate how we can embrace a more automatic and continuous testing session that translate actually the inputs that we are getting from the users in a way that can be also validated and tested through A/B session in a way that we are really receiving an analytical reply from a large network of people. And sometimes I really like the picture that you can see on the right, that your instinct as designer, it can be right, but sometimes we may stay just a little bit out of focus, just ranging in the center and not really sharpening what is the right proposition for the user. So experimenting means also launching things live and really validate with A/B testing with real user. And in particular, I really like to mention this idea from Netflix to really validate the various behavioral archetype with an understanding on how they are present in the market segmentation. So to really compare a real life use case with what we have as initial business opportunity in the market, we really need to start investigating more and more with user and shape accordingly the right user experience for all the specific situation. So here, 4 steps to reach a high quality translation of this meaningful data. So first of all, it's important to start from behavioral patterns. And here you can see some images on how we at Frog, for example, we sketch personas and archetypes, investigating what are the relevant emotional and behavioral patterns, and try to use them as a starting point to identify what are the common patterns that can be present already in different target segments. And understanding the different behavioral patterns give you a better idea of what is your customer base and what is their attitude. Of course, this is not enough, as we were saying before. And actually, we need to validate the archetype. So this archetype that we created are fundamental for getting the right input from the behaviors and the way they are using a service from the original and native customer journey. But we need really to understand through quantitative user research how much this archetype are present. So we need at the end to size the market to inform the business in doing the right decision actually on how to balance the different use cases and then really arriving to a more correct MVP or release of functionality. And one big lesson that actually I learned over the time is that actually it's very important understanding the user with a one-on-one interview. Here you can see a young version of me in the picture where I was running a live test with a concept prototype or experience prototype, trying really to get qualitative information on the conversation I'm engaging with the users. And actually, one other big lesson that I would like to share with you, I understood that it's very important to listen to people, to really get the background, to really understand what are their challenges and in general, what are needs behind something. But also it's very important to keep and also to observe what they do and how they perform in real life. Because sometimes, one of the very relevant things that people describe in an abstract way or tell different stories than what they do in reality with the product you design for. So you need to really pay attention on how they are acting on your prototype. And then, of course, we need to investigate new methodology, new solutions for evolving product design, especially today where we like that our product evolves over time with little changes. A very good example are Instagram, Facebook, and the way they are progressively released with particular target segment, experimental functionality, and validate the approach through A/B testing and listening to the real usage. And here it's really important, of course, an approach like the Netflix one on how they are actually automating the A/B testing and the analytics reports in order to really inform a better business decision. But for example, on the other side, it's really interesting to observe data analytics and then use this data to, for example, calculate the right sample that you need for having a good validation on a specific market segment. Of course, we're going to have a detailed section for Q&A at the end, so feel free to collect and write down the questions. So I'm trying to reply to all of them at the very end. Then next topic is really trying to reinforce how the business presence can really be included in the way we design, and how we can create an experience and shaping the product strategy in a way that business is satisfied in a good way. I really like to start with a nice quote from Jeff Bezos, that we would say that probably is one of the most successful managers of these years, running is the CEO of Amazon, and really I really like this quote, because somehow synthesize the principle of what means probably being an innovator. So business probably has many KPI, and in general you start to investigating design solution when you really need to satisfy the competition, and in general to reach a certain standard level on the market. But if you maintain this approach of just watching, just following competitors, you may probably wait until there will be a real competitor for you. So the right approach on innovation, also from the business side, is really being more customer focused. And in general, this approach will give you the opportunity to be the first, to be the pioneer in approaching a specific business. And one of the things that I really would like to challenge many times product owners that needs to translate the stakeholder requirement, it's really sharpening in their mind who are the real competitors. And in this part, it can be simple in some particular business or cases, but also very challenging in new one or in innovative business. Really, here I'm bringing one of the most probably famous example of strategical thinking on the product experience. On the left, I imagine that everyone knows this car is the Model S from Tesla, probably one of the most disruptive objects of this generation, trying to introduce to mass market what can be the future of automotive, and in general the electric automotive industry. And at the first sight, we may think that the functionality and the feature list for realizing the Tesla were actually only connected to the specific product development. And maybe the first idea, it can be that the strategic positioning or the real competitor of Tesla are just the automakers. So the car industry, VW, the truck industry, or BMW, Mercedes. But in reality, we see that with a more strategic approach on the core structure of the product and its, let's say, business and core functionality, that is energy, Tesla and Elon Musk, they are attracting many others and challenging many others industry. For example, the topic of the fuel industry. So by really creating a network of charging station that is a feature of the product itself, because you can get free charging while using the car, while being an owner of the car. But on the other side is creating another side business that is the charging station itself. And then the storage. So in these days, Elon Musk introduced the new layout for the battery, an innovation that will compress and increase the power of the battery, so you can reduce actually the power pack, the powertrain for the cars. And at the same time, the same technology can be used also for store in a home, more energy. And at the end, the more and more, the real background probably of Tesla is being an energy provider, where the main concept is really translating apartment, home in more autonomous object as connected elements of a more larger smart grid. And in this particular case, the battery is another functionality that is extending to many, many other business cases. Yes, I'm charging the car at home, but the car itself is the battery of the home. And then lastly, also the sharing economy. I have a system and I decide to invest a lot of money and budget in functionality for, let's say, autonomous driving. And why don't mix together autonomous driving and tunneling and invent a solution that will help people, let's say, challenging by itself the concept of taxi and car sharing, by really having autonomous cars that can be booked and they can also make money while being part and owned by other people. So as you can see, strategical thinking can help you to prioritize the feature list. But if you look at the big picture, you may think that some functionality can be more relevant because you want to enlarge or you want to expand your product vision. And of course, one of the main opportunities here is to include a strategical thinking to envision what is the long run and really define what is the product vision that you see in the future. And along the way, while releasing product, you will be able to adapt somehow the backlog and the functionality prioritization that you want to include in a specific drop or MVP of your master plan. And this is why it's also nice, this picture, because it's really the moment when Tesla was revealing the naming also, because all the sequence of the models are translating the label sexy, because this was part of the master plan that each letter will create a word by the release date of the various cars. But again, it's really part of translating a vision in a final master plan. And to do that, of course, I really think that design can help and has a really important position in taking strategic decisions. So it's very important to analyze current business, but also to really start envisioning possible future scenario and how we can do that with the help of design. So we can start actually analyzing the market, analyzing what are the trends. And one of the things that I really care about when I design something is really doing a benchmark from the user experience perspective, having a lens on what are the functionality and how much they costed in general, how they are balanced in the overall customer experience. Only understanding how something works today and how perform on the different industry and trying to put another layer on top, that is the layer of the best-in-class experience for each specific moment of the customer journey, you will be able to identify some opportunities and some drivers to really sketch and envision a good product strategy. And of course, I don't feel that it's something that we have to do alone. As I was saying at the very beginning, design can support, and can support in several ways. And first of all, of course, with the design thinking approach. So really putting together people, and this is the way at Frog, we work together in really facilitating the idea generation and putting people on the same table, using tools that somehow are, for some people, a little bit unbalanced. Some people are more practical, sketching, post-it, but putting all of them together and we can introduce also additional analytical information from the previous analysis. And this is an opportunity for putting product leadership, technologies, business owners in the same room and sketching solution for real customer needs based on the real analytics. But of course, translating the sketch, translating the high-level pictures that you may you are able to refine to a certain level of detail in a particular meeting, they may need more more analytical thinking, more design capabilities, and in particular, what is very important is foresee the scenarios by sketching the customer journey. And as you know, customer journey can be visualized with several levels of details, and in particular, adjusting the different journey according to the various market trajectories. And really, here the ability of design is to translate a functionality, a particular touch point, or a particular emotional pattern in a visual representation on how people will experience something in the future. But of course, this is not enough. And I mean, the initial visualization of the journey is also a moment to discuss together with the business owner and to validate and assess what is the right value proposition that we are offering in the particular cases. What's the value of the wearable device while running, but also what is the value that we are bringing when we are indoor, just sit down on the sofa. So really, the validation of market scenarios is something that put together the analysis of the value proposition, but also the opportunity of really adapting the customer journey to the different situation. And now we're moving on to the last part, that also I feel that is the combination of all this knowledge together and the ability to work in a long-term deal, and in particular trying to define what is really the right digital product life cycle. And here I cannot mention this nice quote from the Spotify culture that is a little bit changing the agile quote, but I really like the way they really consider an opportunity, the speed to go to market, both for failing, both for learning, but also for transforming organization and transforming the way the system and in general also the team can accept and integrate this feedback. And of course, mentioning another very important and giant company like Apple, you need to find the right balance. And the balance of incorporating business needs while releasing a new version of your product user experience is something very challenging, only from a design perspective. So here is very important, this moderation role from the product owner and this capability to really shape how we can refine and decide what are the characteristics of the MVP or not, and what also are the characteristics of the future versioning of the product. Apple is really mastering at that, and in general creating plan for a progressively rollout of their functionality, maintaining a good balance between pricing, service model, and then the original business need and their value proposition. And one of the secrets behind this capability is, of course, having a great team, a team that is really a multidisciplinary one, and it's a teamwork. So I really like to reinforce here the ability to include different point of view and really different capability in your team. This will not only accelerate result because you have dedicated people, dedicated person to quickly roll out functionality, but you also have the opportunity to bring the expertise to analyze what are the real user behavior, and then also the capability to validate business and design choices by, let's say, translating this in the real design. And of course, this is all part of a correct planning on how to launch a product and a great collaboration, a long-term good collaboration across the functional team that really accelerate the streamline of product delivery from the very initial business requirement to creating a very best customer experience. So in particular, I really like the idea that behind all of that, it's fundamental to really set the right phases of the program. In here, it came a little bit more the theoretical model of design. And this is the methodology we use at Frog. So really combining divergent and convergent approach to open options, but converge to really nail down and sharpen a product design, and then add additional detail, and then reduce again to go live for delivery. And this activity is, let's say, a methodology that should be embedded in the mind of designers and product owners, accelerating their capability to translate all the research insight that you may have to write down on whiteboard that you need probably to discuss together with the rest of the team, but doing it very quick all over the different phases of the program for, let's say, consolidating the right design and solution. And of course, this is the point that I was mentioning before. So the putting together cross-disciplinary resources means that you have the capability to start discussing about functionalities while also observing the UI and the user interface and the visual language that is communicating the same functionality. But also, as you see in the picture below, extending it also to the business owner, trying to really introduce opportunity, pain points, difficulties, but really the integration of multiple resources from the design side, from the business perspective, but also in many cases from client and stakeholders, will give the team more capability to do problem solving. And then, of course, we need also to introduce over time some of the functionality that will help us in translating the business requirement in measurable KPI. Otherwise, we will be not able to really define where our new design, our new product is performing better than the past. And in particular, they can be focusing on technology, on technology advantages, but also in the efficiency of solving particular use cases. And even the activity itself to define what is the relevant KPI to include is a topic that should be discussed and validated internally in the team. But it's the only way of having an opportunity to really understand how the solution is working in terms of customer experience, but also in terms of business processes. And then last, it's very important to translate your idea to something that can be tested and validated in real life. And this is something that I will mention for any different cases and situation. Here, I can tell you that have been engaged in several different types of prototype for very different businesses, but at the end, the purpose was always the same, to really refine the customer journey while observing and testing this prototype with the real user, from testing how people are turning on, off lights using the IKEA smart home, or testing how it's possible to have conversation or start using a connected fridge that has a touchscreen on it. And again, the fidelity of the prototype may vary, it may change over the time and over the different cycle of design, but will help you to expose to the final user as soon as possible the assumption that you are having for your design. So really, just to synthesize, because we are almost at the end, but just to wrap up, I would like to really say that if you have happy customers, actually this automatically translates in successful businesses. So the combination of those two things should really remain aligned in a way that you have the possibility to really satisfy your customers with the best possible user experience. At the same time, you will meet also the business requirement that you had in mind. And this is not something completely new, or of course it's challenging, but as you see today, there are several companies that really are performing in a good way and always balancing business with an excellent customer experience. I just placed the logos. You can see some of them we've been discussing already, from Tesla to Netflix to the welcoming and the reward of Starbucks to Amazon, and in general to the intelligence that Spotify include in the product and adapting the business over time. So wrapping up and really doing a quick recap of the 5 learnings that I would like to share with you on balancing user-centered design versus the client-centered the business needs. And here, the 4 key learnings that I would like to share with you. So first of all, it's fundamental to remember and to understand the product value proposition. And there are several methodologies, several approaches for really validating this, from marketing insight, from benchmark to defining the product strategy. And this will help you to translate together, so partially working on functionality, on the vision, roadmap, and visualizing the concept to set a vision that will really guide the production part even before doing the detailed design. And of course, this part will be very, let's say, assisted by a methodology, by an approach of divergent and convergent design, trying to investigate more opportunities at the very beginning and try to synthesize and converge to possible design solutions that will meet user and business requirement. And of course, your ideas can be perfectly in focus, but in many situations, they will just be not centered to the problem of the users because you have different point of view. But what is important is really validating design choices with different levels of fidelity, just really starting from early prototype, from concept test to more structured user flow and validation test. And of course, this will need to structure a team that should be coordinating by the new skills of the product owners and the capability of, let's say, managing a group of people that will range from designers, strategists, analysts, data analysts, and technology to really shape a solution that is tailored to the customer need. And with this, I will thank you all for this time. And of course, now it's your turn to start writing down questions or asking anything you like. And of course, you can always do it offline on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on the other channel where you can find me online. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the amazing insights, Antonio. It was a really great presentation. And now we'll give our audience a moment here to ask their questions. Audience, please go ahead and ask your questions in the Q&A section or in the LinkedIn thread. Antonio, meanwhile, we do have a question in the Q&A section, if you could see.
Yeah, I see already one.
Yes, do you want me to read it out to you?
Sure. What will be some techniques you can recommend by which we can make a user-focused decision in situations where the client product owners or the backend system do not support the right experience? Very common. Sometimes the client may not have the right budget to support backend update to meet the user and experience requirement. This is one of the great situations that it's always happening. Of course, there are situations where you don't have the opportunity to change. But in general, I feel that this is the case where we are already in a wrong setup. For example, in particular, focusing on the backend system, I feel that customers, clients that really want to innovate, they really have to put in discussion their traditional system. So really doing let's say, top layer painting on the front-end user interface is not something that can be enough for really improving the quality. So somehow the project will be limited if starting this way. Another topic is if you can start actually from the very beginning, but for some reason you lost the connection with the backend, the system integrator, the technology team, and you arrived with a solution that is not feasible. This is one of the cases where actually it's a mistake from the product manager, from the designer, because you can, as a technique, start introducing insight and also having an opportunity of engaging the system integrator at the very beginning to ideate solution that will use the backend in ways that you never thought. And this is something that many clients don't do. They just consider integrators at the very end. And of course, this is a situation where sometimes you cannot change it that much. And also on the budget, sometimes really, of course, it's not always the same happy solution, but I feel that there are changes that can be done, but no one knows until you start having a strong collaboration with backend solution from the very beginning. What are the average timeline at Frog to execute the project? Has been there any cases where you had to skip the following, accelerate process when deadline were short? Other very, very nice question actually. So first of all, the timing can change a lot. Project can run from 1-2 months or to 6-9 months for covering the complete ideation to final rollout. Of course, there are some times when we are engaged in a very short time, but in particular, in this case, we will try also to explain that our value is also in the opportunity of really getting the right space or time to nail down the value proposition. So in general, it's very rare that customers that ask us to innovate don't know that it's very important to touch or to define together the product strategy and the value proposition. What's happening most often that they don't plan in the right way. So basically, the beginning plan is too fast, considering that, let's say, the value proposition is already there, and it's just the time to translate it in a user experience. These are the moments where we, as a Frog, as a good consultant, I'm following a suggestion from one of my good colleagues. So we are we're design consultant, not for saying yes, but sometimes also for saying no, and for really driving a conversation in the right path. So really saying that we can go fast, but you really need a moment that expand a little bit the problem and consolidate the solution before really jumping on the quick deadline we have. And if it's if the plan was wrong, also accepting a little bit of delay because it's the success of the program. How can we make remote design thinking process successful and make client understanding the time for user-centered project building? This is very, very nice because these days, for everyone, it's a challenging time. You know how to run remote research. We at Frog, we have a methodology that we call it Frog Remote, with several tools and practices on applying the different type of research that we do on completely in a remote setup, from one-to-one interview to user test validation to qualitative and quantitative analysis on prototype. Of course, make client understand the time that is investing on that is not something that I feel really related to remote. Somehow, as a paradox, I will say that remote is actually simplifying it because costs are a little bit less because you don't travel, and people somehow accept that it's important to be in contact with their customer now that they are a little bit far away from them. But understanding the time on invested, because this is an investment in understanding the user, is something that I feel already familiar to more progressive and innovative company. And for the one that are a little bit behind, it's not because they don't trust the value of the user, but probably because they haven't seen this for the first time. So one of the big suggestions I would say, try to invite your stakeholders, the business owners, during the testing session or the analysis of the foundational research, and you will see how they change their mind, since they have maybe very, very strong idea on how people are using the interface of product, and in reality is quite different the way people use their software. So this is also a good way for making it more clear to everyone. Currently, there's a standardization for UX. How is the client-centered design more important? And normally, what is the weightage we give to client-centered design and user-centered design while preparing a solution product? Good point. Maybe on this, I need to do a little bit step back. Technology is accelerating the delivery part, but it's not only for the UX, it's also for technology. Many script, many pre-code solution, application environment that will help you deploy multiple platform, no, Android and iPhone, with just a simple tool that automatically convert the code. So somehow, let's say, all the economy of automatic task is at risk, because automation is, let's say, more led by software than humans. And this one probably more standard topic. Standardization is about the front-end layer. So, and this is a positive thing from certain way. So we are forcing all people to create and to consolidate patterns and to focus on the quality of their services instead of just reworking many times on some UI component. So what I will say is more that I see a standardization of the UI layer of the UX component. In reality, user experience and user experience strategy really belong to the way a product is used by people. So in general, the customer journey, I haven't seen so many standards apart some checkout funnel or some payment flow. So in reality, there's still a lot to do on improving the business process in order to sharpen what is the value proposition and to differentiate business. Of course, the UI layer can be a little bit more standardized, but I'm aiming that a new wave of digital branding will reinforce the quality and characterize the best brand from the others. But today is the moment of really reshaping the interface background and infrastructure design. A few more questions. I don't know if I can stay that long, but I'll try to answer very quick. Thank you for the great session. Can you please tell us your preferred tool to measure UX design? Oh, great. I mean, there are several tools. One of them is for sure user testing. It's a very nice platform because they include usertesting.com because actually they include a lot of vertical tools, for example, Traject for analyzing the information architecture, or some parameter to see also the performance of click-through. But of course, there are different situations where you may need some additional analytic tool. For example, if you send out a quantitative survey, and maybe you need more, let's say, data analysis specific tool for synthesizing the answers, or sometimes if you want to really have a live screen sharing of the prototype while watching how people are action, you have live flow. And of course, when we're going to have the possibility to let's say, have the options to do more in-person tests, have opportunity to also integrate maybe a framer prototype where you can really have some, let's say, technical analytics that will report timing and usage of your prototype. how different the design thinking methodology than your competitor, IDEO. I will not enter in the detail because what for me is more important is that in general, design companies are introducing a method. And the method for me is an important way of framing a problem. Framing a problem is the first step to identify the intermediate steps that you need to finalize something. And of course, everyone has adapted over time the framework for analyzing problem to the structure of the internal organization, the way you approach business, and in general, what are the people inside the organization. What I really like, and I would say that is in common from Frog and IDEO, is the idea that we iterate. And design is not something that will came out at the first, but in general, it's a sort of iteration of continuous testing and refinement. And this somehow is the cycle that repeats always across the different steps and flows of the divergent and convergent design. We are, at Frog, very interested in sending product to market. That's something that maybe is a little bit different from IDEO. We really like to be engaged on the transition from concept design to development and to launching the to market solution. So we evolved a little bit our design thinking methodology to not just cover the initial concept design phase, but also enter in the way we can also collaborate together with agile methodology and also technology partners to really roll out something to the market. I hope it's a little bit more clear in this way.
Thank you for answering all the questions audience asked, Antonio. I know you're running late and we have to conclude this session, but I'm sure the audience can connect with you over LinkedIn for any more questions. You'll be more than available for them.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes, of course. As you see here, you can write down on Twitter at my interaction, or you can also reach me on LinkedIn with my name, and I will be happy to start having conversation with you, and of course discuss about design and business. That is something that I really like always to do.
Now, I'm not going to take more time, Antonio. So thank you for joining us again. It was a complete pleasure to have you with us tonight. It was great content and great interaction with the audience.
And thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to share this insight of design methodology. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a complete pleasure from our end.